Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
The Democrat Murder of America. Demagoguery in the First Degree. It's a new book. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman with hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use as always. And it all starts now. Ladies and gentlemen, Sheriff Richard Mack with me, well known for the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, well known for his books From My Cold Dead Fingers, from his books Are You a David, from his books The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope. Those are just several of them. He's about to finish his new book, so we're going to talk about it. Sheriff, welcome back, sir.
Sam, it's great to be with you again on this beautiful Tuesday morning.
You say the Democrat murder of America?
That's putting it mildly, Sam.
You're not overstating the issue, you say, huh?
No, afraid not. When you look at the history of the Democrat Party, Sam, it goes way back, but they were the ones responsible for the intimidation, murder, and lynching of black Americans and slaves. They're the ones that instituted the KKK. They're the ones that instituted Jim Crow laws. In our research, I actually found out that Jim Crow was not a real person. It was a dance step, and it was turned into abuse against the American, the new Americans that used to be slaves. They tried everything they could to keep slavery. They tried everything they could to make sure that blacks couldn't vote. And then when they did, they intimidated them and made all sorts of different laws, poll taxes and educational tests to make sure that they were allowed to vote, and they somehow just never passed and couldn't vote. And the Republican Party is the one that defended the new black citizens, and were the first ones to try to get rid of slavery. And indeed, President Abraham Lincoln was credited with actually freeing the slaves, and he's the one that pushed it. He took a lot of heat for doing it, and it may have been the one thing that cost him his life, that he was assassinated over. So all of this came from the Democrat side. And then now, I had a teacher once when I used to be teaching that he really got after me for pretending that the Democrat Party of today was the same one as of old. Well, I never said it was the same. It's actually gotten worse every year. And now it's the party of death regarding killing babies in the womb. And Sam, this is probably
death,
the
putting our soldiers in harm's way, going to war. We can keep going on that. Now, the book really, just to be clear, does highlight that Republicans are far from perfect, and they're part of the problem as well. But it goes into the details about the history of the Democratic Party. Demagoguery is a term that is used, and I don't think people understand in modern terms that term. I want to talk about that term, and I want to talk about the term of democracy, because really in the opening salvo of the book, you highlight these terms and kind of help. Once people understand these terms, it helps them understand the book, right?
Yeah, I think so. And demagoguery has been used a lot by both parties, I would say. And you mentioning that, obviously the Republicans aren't perfect. When it comes to rhinos, I actually prefer most Democrats over rhinos, but even rhinos are not in favor of abortion most of the time. We've seen some Republicans that have actually supported funding Planned Parenthood, which is probably one of the biggest political crimes ever committed in our country. But I don't want to excuse it by saying political crime. It is a crime to funnel taxpayer dollars to a private organization that provides no government service. I know that we have to hire pavement companies that help with roads and bridges and stuff. The federal government or other governments don't own those kind of companies. Maybe to a degree, some maintenance do, but they don't own these big companies that can build bridges and pave roads all over America. Certainly, taxpayers are going to pay for that, but it provides a government service. Planned Parenthood provides no government.
And by the way, and a service that benefits all equally. Let's make that clear, because that's really an important
that's
milestone,
a good point.
Right?
Yeah, good point. But when it comes to partial birth abortion, a baby is being born, and then they kill it while it's still inside the mother, and she's trying to have the baby, and they kill. And is she in favor of it? Most of the time, but it's still the push and the propaganda scheme and the brainwashing from Planned Parenthood is to sell body parts, and for women that, kill the baby, that's what we're here to help you do. And they do it, and now we're paying for it and have been. And I praise President Trump for at least working to defund Planned Parenthood partially or for 1 year. Now we just need to make this permanent and always. And so it's easy to bring up a lot of different ways that the Democrat Party has been guilty of murder. They are murdering. And Sam, I don't know. I know I sent you a transcript, but did you notice the one thing? This is probably the one thing that struck me the most about all of the research that we did, and it's Dorothy Kilgallen. Do you remember her?
I don't.
Dorothy Kilgallen was, when I was a boy, I remember watching the TV show, What's My Line? And this is right when TV started. It was black and white.
Yeah, see, I'm too young for this, Sheriff. I'm only 6
Yeah, I know.
years old now.
Yeah, and she was a regular guest or panelist on What's My Line? And people would come up there and they would have to ask them questions about, and figure out what they did as a career. And she had actually gained a lot of celebrity because she did a worldwide race, a physical race. And then after that, she became, and she probably already was actually, a journalist. And after JFK was assassinated, she started investigating his death. And her first conclusion was that the Warren Commission report on the JFK assassination was laughable. Laughable.
And I would say it's laughable is at least highlighting the truth to some degree because of the mockery of the truth, but it's not laughable because it was serious. But yes, I get it.
The investigation was laughable.
Yes.
And it was very poorly done. Well, it was a cover-up. And she had also amassed all sorts of evidence. She had all sorts of reports. And guess what, Sam? She died just like Marilyn Monroe did. And yet they called Marilyn Monroe's a suicide. But the police would not call Dorothy Kilgallen's death a suicide. And it was probably just an accident. She took some sleeping pills and she was drinking and she died. Doggone it. But guess what, Sam? All of the information and evidence that she had amassed and put together was missing. It was gone.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, so her accidental death also came with losing every bit of the evidence that she had about the JFK assassination.
Now, when I cut my teeth in talk radio in the early 90s, ladies and gentlemen, they used to call those Arkansides, by the way.
They did what? Arkansas?
Yeah, when people would suicide, they'd call them Arkansides because Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton seemed to always be in the middle of them, and so they joked and called them Arkansides because everybody around Bill and Hillary were dead. It reminds me of that kind of a deal. But I want to highlight this demagoguery term a little bit because I think it's important to understand the whole nature of how the Democratic Party is doing what it's doing. Mm-hmm. It's a political strategy, folks, that involves appealing to people's emotions, fears, and prejudices rather than using rational arguments. Okay? Leaders that employ this tactic often focus on stirring up powerful emotions, creating divisions, and spelling misinformation to gain power and influence. They typically target popular anxieties in their speeches, their propagandas. They create scapegoats, and they use certain manipulative groups to consolidate their positions. Okay, it can undermine our constitutional processes, truly democratic processes, and it can basically move to personal power and emotional appeal. The Democratic Party has become a master in demagoguery, and that's why the book Sheriff Richard Mack and his co-author, which we'll talk about in just a second, wrote. The new book is called The Democrat Murder of America. Demagoguery in the First Degree. Incredible book. It's coming out soon. We'll talk more about it in seconds. You are watching Liberty Roundtable Live.
Cybercrime is exploding. Take Sarah from Sweet Delights, whose world crumbled after having to close with not being able to bounce back. Small businesses are prime targets, but the right strategies can keep yours safe. Jay Hill, CEO of Network Providers, has co-authored The Cyber Playbook Simplifies Cybersecurity for Business Owners with Strategies to avoid costly breaches and fines, build a strong cyber attack response, secure your business with key protections. Cyber threats aren't slowing down, but you can stay ahead. Protect your business. Ensure its security for tomorrow. Get the Cyber Playbook today at networkprovidersinc.com/cyber-playbook or call 385-446-5500 now.
Are you watching what's happening in our country and asking, what can I do? Join the John Birch Society in Salt Lake City, June 6th, for a powerful one-day conference. The day includes a host of respected speakers, 2 meals, and meaningful connections. You'll gain clarity on the issues and walk away with practical steps you can take to your community. Reserve your seat today at jbs.org/SLC26. That's jbs.org/SLC26.
All right, it's Sam Bushman, ladies and gentlemen. Sheriff Richard Mack with me. Become part of the CSPOA posse today. Join America's growing posse, because we're taking America back one county at a time. CSPOA.org to become part of that. We're discussing Sheriff Mack's book that's about to come out, The Democrat Murder of America. Demagoguery in the First Degree. Daniel Perkins is a co-author of the book along with Sheriff Richard Mack. Tell everybody about Daniel, because he brings a lot to the table, Sheriff.
Yeah, he does. This was actually all his idea. He and I did a podcast together about 4 or 5 months ago, and he called me afterwards, and he asked me on the podcast if I had written books, and I said, yeah, I've written about 7 or 8 books. And he said, I'm going to call you and put you on a Zoom with just you and me. And okay, we did. And he said, what was your first book? And I got it off my desk, and I showed it to him. And I said, it was From My Cold Dead Fingers, Why America Needs Guns. And it was born out of my lawsuit against the federal government to protect the Second Amendment and to protect the office of sheriff from federal overreach. And I showed him a few parts of it, and he said, how would you like to write a book with me? And I said, well, what is it about? And he said, we want to expose the Democrat Party for who they are, of destroying our country and destroying our Constitution. And he said, and I want it to be very bold. I want it to tell the truth, and I don't want to hold back on anything. So I essentially said, so you want to expose the Democrat Party as the murderers of America? He said, yeah, that's basically it. And he says, the only problem I see that what will happen with the book is that we will have too much information to put in the book, and it'll be hard to keep the book at about 300 pages. And I said, yeah, I could see that. Yeah. And that's been true, Sam. I know it is kind of funny, but it's true. These people are so corrupt. Sam, what about election fraud alone? And the denial of the Democrats and the Democrat media of all
Well,
of this.
they only deny it when the Republicans make the claim. Otherwise, they make the claim longer than the Republicans have, for that matter.
Yeah,
so it's really important to understand the oldest party in America right now is the Democrat Party. 1828, you document they started, right?
Right, exactly. And you brought up the pair of Democrats that have become, and we put this in the book, that Bill and Hillary, their names have become synonymous with corruption and even death, as you alluded to earlier. Sam, how many times have you heard me tell this joke? I sued the Clintons and lived to tell about it. And
that's the point, yeah.
And that joke, well, it's not a joke. It's actually true, which makes it funny. But everywhere I do it, I still do it. I've been using that ever since I did the lawsuit. So I've been using that line for 28, 29 years, and it still works. And so I'll use it again this weekend when I'm speaking in Idaho. And so I looked up, and you've heard about this too. Hillary made a trade on the stock market on cattle futures. And she made like an astonishing 1,000%.
It was Pelosi-esque, if you will.
Yes, well, even worse, because this was actually not just insider trading, it was manipulation of the trade, and it was fabricated.
Yeah, but it's okay if Bill and Hillary do that.
Well, of course, they needed the money.
Bill can rape, pillage, and plunder, no problem at all. There can be arkancides everywhere, no problem at all. And this typifies what we're talking about, the Democratic Party, the Democrat murder of America. And really, it highlights this word demagoguery that we're talking about, too, that they have literally done that. You know, bimbo eruptions all the way through. Forget the Me Too movement. It was bimbo eruptions first by the Democratic Party. And now we're talking about democracy. They've used this term as well to basically, in my opinion, jettison, for the most part, to the best of their ability, representative constitutional government based on principles that are republic in nature, Republican. We have a republic if you can keep it. We have a Republican form of government. And your book highlights the difference between a democracy and a republic. And I know the elite and the intellectuals go, well, Sam, you know what I mean. No, I actually don't know what you mean. You're clearly wrong. And by doing that, you're basically changing the nature of how we view government, right?
Well, it does. And Sam, another thing I point out about democracy is that it allows the government, as long as you're a democracy, it allows you to do anything you want. You don't have to follow the rules. You don't have to follow the law, i.e. the Second Amendment. How many Democrats have proposed complete gun confiscation and disarmament of the American people when the Second Amendment declares gun control to be against the law? But they still do it. They don't care. They don't care what the law is. And I have a part in there that says they don't care about the law. They don't care about violence. They don't care about safety. They don't care about international security. They don't care about you. And all they care about is money and power and winning. And this is just gotten way too out of hand. And I talk about how we've gone too far. We've gone too far in America. AI is another example. We've gone too far. We've gone too far with screen time. We've gone too far with phones. We've gone too far with social media and encouraging youth to commit suicide. And now social media groups are losing that battle in courts, and families who have lost children doing this and being addicted to social media, they're losing because they can tell that this was part of a design. Folks, we've gone too far, and politics has gone too far.
The term used in the book, there's a whole section that defines what you're talking about. The section's called Democrat Insanity, right?
Correct. And that just kept going and going. We just listed all of it and just kept going and going. And we brought up AOC and just the utter insanity that they're bringing forward, Sam. And probably what epitomizes that is putting men, as long as men call themselves a woman, then they can play in female sports, which is such an absurdity. And no one agrees with it. Most Democrats don't agree with that. And you
They
take
just
these
don't
little
dare
girls.
speak out against the insanity is the problem.
Yeah.
Because the party, as you mentioned, has gone too far. You highlight the party problem. But
Right.
you also highlight that they're the greatest purveyor of violence in the world. And what's more violent than mutilating your own body to change your sex or pretend that you can change your sex? What's more violent than that, Sheriff?
Yeah, it is, Sam. And the Democrats keep pushing that. And not only do they keep pushing the mutilation of boys and girls, but they keep pushing that where you don't have to tell your parents that we're helping you. And California schools are doing that. And this is such a sad, destructive, murderous movement of the Democrat Party. And how dare they try to murder the responsibility of a parent to take care of their own children and to know that their children are taking hormone pills at school.
They're murdering issues over race. They're murdering issues over gender. They're murdering issues over every single thing that matters. Life. Basically, here's the deal. Lie, cheat, and steal. Threaten is needed. That's one of the headings in your book as well, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I tell the story, my personal story. I tell the personal story that I've had involvement with the media, ASU Journalism School, Sarah Sidner from CNN, and many others who have gone after me. Jessica Pishko in her book about the sheriffs, and it was 90% of the CSPOA movement, the Constitutional Sheriff Movement, and how dangerous a constitutional sheriff would be to America. Good grief. It's
now you
it's
even
that
bring
kind
up
of,
human trafficking, and they're at the core of human trafficking as well, Sheriff.
they're certainly at the core of it, Sam, because they're the ones who have promoted it at the border. Bring in, Sam, when you see one man walking with 30 children going to the border, and then his excuse of having all those children is that he's trying to reunite these children with their parents in America. Right. And Sam, how do these poor families in Latin America that are walking here, how do they pay cartels and coyotes $7,000 to $10,000 to bring their families into America? That's another thing that the Democrats have ignored or promoted, and that is these families have to sell their children to the cartels so that they can pay for the rest of them to get into our country illegally. And then, of course, get them registered to vote. And you don't have to show ID to vote. You don't have to show ID to get registered. And you can register to vote the very day of the election and then vote right then and there. And then you could go back to Argentina, where you're from, and brag about how you voted in America while you were on vacation.
And if you ask the immigrants, they will say, hey, we are told to come here and have babies. They'll be citizens. If you ask the immigrants, they say, you know what, Biden told us to come, and there was incentives for us to become, Americans or be America, whatever, and do America, whatever that means, because they don't even know what it means. They're just like, hey, as long as I can get across that line, then all things become mine. Get me across that line. All things become mine. And that's really the mantra that Joe Biden and company promoted. Ladies and gentlemen, the book is incredible. It's coming out soon. We'll do more episodes on this as the release gets closer. But it is Sheriff Mack's latest book, and you got to get a copy because it really highlights some fundamental truths. And it's important that it comes out before the election, too, because I'm telling you right now, it seems like Donald is in self-destruction mode. The Democrats, if you're not careful, are going to take the House and the Senate. I pray they don't. And I'm not telling you the Republicans are perfect, but you wait. If the Democrats get in power, oh boy, will it be difficult for we, the people who believe in liberty. I'll tell you that right now. Sheriff Richard Mack with me. CSPOA.org. Become a member of the posse today and keep an eye out for his latest book. I'm Sam Bushman. You're watching Liberty Roundtable, available on YouTube, Rumble, X, Truth Social, everywhere, baby. Also, LibertyRoundtable.com and Liberty News Radio. God save our republic.